So we are back again with the class 11th political science, as we have already started the first chapter of the book Indian Constitution at Work, and we have already discussed the chapter 1, that is Constitution. In the previous lecture we have studied about the functions of the Constitution, how the Constitution was made, the role of the Constituent Assembly, the objective resolution and other important aspects regarding Constitution. So today we are discussing the last issue which was important in making the Constitution effective, and that was the institutional arrangements. Now what do we mean by the institutional arrangement? Institutional arrangement means that the government has to strike a balance between the different institutions that existed in the country. These institutions included the legislative, executive and judiciary on one hand, and the state and the central government on the other hand. So it was in the hands of government how to strike a balance and how to arrange these institutions in the most effective way. Firstly, the government must be democratic and committed to public welfare. As we have discussed earlier, public welfare was the most important criteria that was taken into mind when the Constitution was being made. So a lot of time was spent on evolving the right balance among the various constitutions, and this discussion and this led to the adoption of the parliamentary and the federal arrangement. This parliamentary and the federal arrangement divided the powers, as I just told you, between at the horizontal level as well as at the vertical level. Moreover, the framers of our constitution, they wanted to make the constitution the most effective form of constitution. So what they did, they borrowed various things from the other constitutions of the different countries. But this borrowing was not blindfold copying. They just borrowed whatever they found effective in that particular country and incorporated it within our constitution. Means they picked and chose the best from the other countries and used it in a constitution. That's why sometimes we also refer to as a constitution as a big bag of borrowing. Little detail about it. For example, from the British Constitution, we took the first past the post system that you will be studying when we will be doing the chapter on elections. The parliamentary form of government, I told you just upstairs. Idea of rule of law, the law-making procedure, and the institution of the speaker and her or his role. So this all was taken from the British Constitution. On the other hand, from the United States Constitution, the Charter of Fundamental Rights, we will be continuing this in the today's lecture only. The Charter of Fundamental Rights, the power of judicial review and the independence of judiciary was taken. Moreover, the principles of liberty, equality and fraternity were borrowed from the French Constitution, and the idea of residual power and a quasi-federal form of government, that is a federal system with a strong central government, this was taken from the Canadian Constitution. So altogether these all aspects were combined and thus our constitution came into being. Moving ahead to a very important aspect of our constitution is rights. Before I actually tell you what are rights and what are fundamental rights, a small example for all of you. We all keep on saying this, keep on using this statement. This is my right to do so. This is my right to do this. So why? Because rights of an individual are very, very important. And every individual, every free citizen, freedom brings with it a lot of rights. We already know that India had been under the colonial rule of the British Empire and many other foreign rules for a lot of period of time. So during this period, the basic rights of the individuals were actually restricted. So when India became independent, the first and the foremost thing which came into the existence here requirement was to ask for basic rights. Even children, you must have been knowing about Motilal Nehru. So Motilal Nehru Committee had demanded the Bill of Rights in 19 1928, as far as back as 1928. So of course, when India got freedom, the first issue that was in front of the government was to provide a basic set of rights to the Indian citizens. And this was known as a Bill of Rights. So Bill of Rights is a list of rights mentioned and protected by the Constitution. It prohibits the government from acting against the rights of an individual and ensures a remedy in case of violation of rights. Moreover, the government is bound to protect the rights of the individual. It was this Bill of Rights which brought forth the fundamental rights in the Indian Constitution. This word fundamental, it suggests that these rights are so important that the Constitution has listed them separately and has made special provisions for their protection. If you compare fundamental rights with the ordinary rights, now why do we use the word fundamental? What is the difference between fundamental rights and ordinary rights? So the first thing, that ordinary rights are protected and enforced by ordinary law, whereas fundamental rights are protected and guaranteed by the Constitution. On the other hand, ordinary rights can be changed by the legislature by ordinary process of lawmaking, but a fundamental right may only be changed by amending the Constitution. I have told you in the previous lecture that our Constitution is a living document. It is open to amendments. So fundamental rights can only be changed through a constitutional amendment, and no organ of government can violate the fundamental rights. It is the responsibility of the judiciary to protect these rights, and even if the executive or the legislative is involved in the violation of these rights, then the judiciary takes a strict action in this regard and save these rights from violating. Now coming to the fundamental rights, most of you have already studied in your smaller classes also. How many rights are there? There are 6 fundamental rights, which include the right to equality, the right to freedom, the right against exploitation, the right to freedom of religion, cultural and educational rights, and the right to constitutional remedies. These rights are included in the part 3rd of the Indian Constitution from Articles 12 to Article 35. Moving towards the first right, that is the right to equality. This right is included in the Articles 14 to Article 18. As soon as you hear the word equality, what comes to your mind? Equality means where all are equal. And this equality was there which was lacking before independence. People had to suffer on various grounds. Why? Because our colonial rulers, they did not consider us equal to them. So equality was the basic requirement of the citizens, and this equality included, right to equality included equality before law. This means law is same for each and every individual. Secondly, it includes the equality of opportunity in public employment. This means every individual has an equal right to apply for any kind of job in a public institution. Secondly, as you all know, untouchability was a big curse on in our country, and the abolition of untouchability was a strong part of this right to equality. Moreover, right to equality further led to the abolition of titles. You all know that in the pre-independence India, the people were having various titles like the Rai Bahadur, the Sir, and etc. So these titles were abolished under these right to equality. Moreover, a very important aspect is that the prohibition of discrimination was there. The prohibition of discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth was included in this right to equality, and it also gave equal access to each and every individual to shops, wells, roads, places of worship, etc. If you all must have seen about your preamble, then in the preamble also they have mentioned 2 types of equality. That is the equality of status and the equality of opportunity. So this was a fundamental right which was of utmost importance to take away any form of discrimination, to give an assurance to each and every citizen that all are equal before law, and to give entitlement to every individual for applying for any kind of job in a public institution. The next right is the right to freedom. This right to freedom is included in the Articles 19 to 22. So, this right to freedom includes protection of right to freedom of speech and expression. Secondly, it also protected the rights to assemble peacefully and to form associations and union. It also gave the right to move freely in any part of the country and to reside and settle in any part of India. It also gave the right to every citizen to practice any profession of his choice. Why? Because we already have stated in the right to equality that any kind of discrimination on the basis of caste was prohibited. As a result, any person can go for any profession irrespective of the caste barriers. Then there was a protection in respect of conviction for offences. Then there was a right to life and personal liberty, the right to education, and the protection against arrest and detention in cases. I know most of you must be remembering the Rowlatt Act. The Rowlatt Act, which was called a black bill. Why? Because anybody could be arrested on any grounds, without any warrant. So this was an unlawful activity which was strictly prohibited by this right to freedom. Why? Because it gave the protection against arrest and detention in any case. You cannot arrest or detain any person without a particular government order. So we will be continuing the same topic of rights in the next lecture. Till then, keep studying and stay safe.